Welcome everyone to the 2024 Selling More Maine Food Series, Sustainable Solutions, Upcycling and Food Production. My name is Tanya Swain and I'll be doing this morning's introductions. Today is part one of a two-part series. Our topic today is Inspired Consumer and Industry Trends with Upcycling in the Food and Beverage Industry. We're pleased to have with us Anna Hammond from Matriarch Foods based in New York, and Christina Berschwal from Where Food Comes From, which is based in Colorado. Selling More Maine Foods is an information and education series for value-added food and beverage producers in Maine. Our program is coordinated by 4 organizations. I work with Maine Food Strategy, which convenes people across the state to work on projects that benefit from state-level collaborative approaches to address food system challenges. And now I'm going to hand it off to my other partners in Selling More Maine Foods to introduce themselves. Christine, do you want to start?
Thanks, Tanya. Good morning, everyone. My name is Christine Cummings. I'm the Executive Director of the Maine Grocers and Food Producers Association. MGFPA is a membership-based business trade association representing Main Street businesses, independently owned and operated grocery and convenience stores, supermarkets, food and beverage producers, processors, wholesalers, and distributor companies. We are primarily a legislative advocacy organization, and based here in Augusta, I spend much of my time at the State House during the legislative session. We work closely with the Maine Department of Ag, Department of Labor, DECD, and others, and serve as a liaison for our members working with the state and the administration. We are a community dedicated to the prosperity of Maine's grocery and food producer industry through excellence in advocacy, networking, and education. And so please reach out if we can be assistance to you or your business. And I'll hand it over to Bill.
Hello, good morning. I'm Bill Soretta. I'm the Executive Director of Fork Food Lab. Fork Food Lab is now located at 95 Darling Avenue in South Portland, in a much larger facility than we've had previously. We are a shared food processing and manufacturing facility. We currently house over 75 startup food businesses from around Maine, and those tend to focus on consumer packaged goods first, mobile food units, and share prepared meals to go. Sorry. Our membership has grown pretty significantly since we moved, and we expect to have over 100 companies by the summer. Sue.
Morning, everyone. My name is Sue Hansen, and I'm with the Maine Center for Entrepreneurs. We're a nonprofit organization in our 27th year. We just celebrated our 25th anniversary 2 years ago, which seems like yesterday. And a lot of you may know us from our Top Gun program, which is across the state. It's been in existence for about 15 years, and that's for startups in Maine across multiple industries. About 6 years ago, we launched our food accelerator programs, Cultivator and Market Share, in partnership with Focus Maine. And those programs are focused on solidifying and growing Maine's food and beverage businesses, helping them to grow their businesses and expand into new markets. And today we've had over 90 food and beverage companies go through those programs. Last year, we also launched a Food Tech Maine program, and that program is for businesses that have technical solutions that support the food and beverage industry, whether that be sustainable packaging, something to do with helping soil, helping things to grow faster, whatever that may be, or even, the technology that might be required for upcycling foods. We have a bunch of food programs going on, a lot of expertise here in the food and beverage industry. A lot of us have had over 30 years experience directly in the food industry, and we have a mentor network of over 250 mentors, and about 90 of those have direct food and beverage experience. So we've had a lot of fun working with Maine food and beverage companies and helping them grow. We also have 2 events coming up, a Food Tech Maine Showcase and a Maine Entrepreneur Summit, and I won't take time to talk about those, but when we send the video recording of today's session, I'll just put a link to those events. They're free events, great for opportunity for learning and networking if you're a Maine entrepreneur. So thanks for being here.
Thanks, Sue. So now we're going to introduce our panelists. We're joined today by Anna Hammond and Christina Berschwal. I'm going to let them do a little bit more introductions for themselves in a moment, but just very briefly, Anna is a founder of Matriarch Foods, a social impact business inspired by her work in the nonprofit sector, and she's also a former board member of the Upcycled Food Association. And Christina Beerswell is with Where Food Comes From, which is an independent third-party verification and certification company. And they have a certification program for upcycled food products. And I'm going to turn it over now to Anna, and she's going to kick us off this morning.
Thanks so much for the introduction. I might just have a really quick little video that sort of tells the story, and I hope that I can make that work. I'm Anna Hammond. I'm the founder of Matriarch Foods, and thanks for having me today. I always love coming back and really doing anything for Fork Food Lab because Matriarch technically launched out of Fork Food Lab. I had been working, running a nonprofit in the Hudson Valley. I'll tell you a little bit more as we go along, but I think as you all know, wasted food is catastrophic and leads to 86 times more potency than greenhouse gases. Meanwhile, it costs $408 billion to transport and food that's imperfect. 117 million people suffer from diet-related illness, and 34 million people in the United States are food insecure. So food waste is not only an environmental disaster, but also a health disaster. And a lot of the solutions to food waste have really been a donation model. And we were part of an early group of people who really wanted to turn that into a business model that could have longevity in solving these issues. So Matriarch was really founded, on these principles of creating healthier food for people that would also reduce hunger and create more revenue for farmers. So I had a long career before I started this business, and then I left the art world to work in politics for a very short period of time. And I was involved in Rockland County, where I used to live, in the founding of the Rockland Farm Alliance. I had been working as a speechwriter for a politician, and she got me involved in organizing a group of farmers who wanted to use county land to grow food for the community. And over about a year, we wrote a piece of legislation. It was passed, and that allowed these farmers to farm county land for the community. So there's a CSA, there's a donation program for a domestic shelter unit, and it's grown now to be three full working farms with a very large coalition of people. I was also running a program in New York City for youth and families living in public housing, which in New York City is technically the 10th largest city in the United States by number of people living there. And that was really teaching young people how to cook healthy food on a budget. The premise being, if you don't know how to cook and you're living on a budget, it's very difficult to eat healthy food in a regular way. There was also a farm connected to that program in Columbia County, and we brought kids from the city and also worked with local kids in Columbia County to basically, straight up like farm to table program, how to grow food, how to cook simple recipes, etc. And then just from this 1 acre of a children's garden, it was a working farm, 13 acres in production, 9,000 square feet of greenhouse. Every week there were just so much food that we couldn't use in the programs that also wasn't being sold. So we tried to start donating it to local food banks. And, you know, as you all know, the logistics of food and fresh food are extremely complex. And so I decided to start a business, basically that would solve these three issues, which were farm surplus, extra revenue for farmers, and creating greater access to healthy food for more people. Started exploring fresh cut facilities, also farms, and then I was about to have an opportunity to do a production in a local food production facility outside of New York. And 2 days before that production run was supposed to happen, they called and said, sorry, we have a run on tomatoes. You know, our tomato processor needs to be in full time for 3 weeks. We can help you with a test run in February. So we'd already bought all the ingredients. We were ready to roll. And I called everyone I knew, and someone said, there's a project going on up in Maine, you know, call this person. So I called the person who was working on that project, and she said, we need a processor for the project. Do you want to come up and meet everyone? So I got in my car, drove up to Portland, met the group, and, you know, I can tell you more about that project later, but, you know, everyone was really incredible. And they said, do you want to join as the processor on the project? And we literally had developed one product using remnants. And so we got a fellowship to work in what was at the time Pilot Works. And then about 2 days before we were supposed to come up to Maine to do the first test, Pilot Works shut down. Enter the great Bill Soretta, who saved the day and basically found the funding to keep the place open. And Bill, you'll have to remind me how many businesses. I think there were 11 at the time. It was still quite small. How many businesses were in Fork, but they were thriving and starting to thrive. And Bill found the funding and really, you know, saved the day, but also launched this incredible program that now, as you know, is on the verge of housing over 100 businesses in the Portland, Maine food shed. And we worked with farmers in the area to kind of test out gleaning. We collected product from them, and we made our first products over a 3-month period. We launched them at the Thanksgiving event. We sold out, and that really was the launch of our company. And before this, there was really no, you know, official Upcycled. We were really at the very beginning of thinking about how can you take products that are delicious, usable, all this farm surplus, and make food, you know, make healthy food for people. And by preserving food, obviously extend the harvest even more. So from that, we started working with other farmers and larger farmers on the Eastern Seaboard. We now work with a large tomato processor who makes a high-end roasted tomato. He has a lot of kickouts. We collect those, we make a sauce. We collect remnants from large fresh cut facilities, and we turn those into a vegetable concentrate. And then we also make a product that is for food banks and emergency food, which is sourced from small and mid-scale New York State farm surplus. So these are just some pictures of sort of the next stage after we left Fork. We went back to the facility we were supposed to launch out of originally. We made our first sort of large scale test batches. Then we found another facility in New Jersey that was willing to kind of experiment with us using their remnants. It's a large fresh cut facility. And we started to make our products for food service. We decided to launch in food service because it's where over 50% of meals are eaten in this country. And also, as you know, huge diet-related illness. And with food service, it's very complicated. It can be very slow going, but you're selling in pallets, not in units. The volume potential there right out the bat without all the marketing complexity, you know, just seemed like a good place if we really wanted to impact our focus. So we now make a number of products for food service. We also launched our first retail products about a year and a half ago. They're tomato sauces. And we've created a business solution for food waste. And I spent most of my career in the nonprofit world, which is a great place, but I think for the longevity of impact, you really have to have business solutions. And we were very strongly pro-farmer. We really felt, obviously, because there were, many of our friends in that community and sort of long conversations, that while the donation model is fantastic and it gets a lot of food to people in need, for the farmer, it's not always the best solution. And so we really wanted to create a viable market for farm surplus that could get turned into products, healthy products that people could eat, and that would also remunerate the farmer. So this is just a little bit of a kind of diagram of how we do what we do, and why it works as a business model. We always pay for surplus. We always pay for remnants. And then we work now with large scale co-manufacturers to make our products. These are the three channels of the business: food service, emergency food, and retail. And for food service, we're packing in large Sholey bags, and also we make a concentrate. For emergency food and retail, we are also still packing in Tetra Recart, which is, you have to be in quite a large facility to do that, but we've gotten quite a bit of support from Tetra Pak to advance our business. I think you probably all know the stats, but if you don't and you're interested in backing up why you're doing what you're doing from an upcycling perspective, there's a lot of data. Increasingly, people want food that's proven to be climate friendly. Matriarch was one of the founding members of the Upcycled Food Association, and we'll hear more from Where Food Comes From, which just acquired the certification process from the association, which has been really a wonderful advancement of the space. There are also, massive public reduction goals on food waste. And so there's a market now for upcycled foods that really has been created by this, original handful of businesses that have just inspired a lot of growth in the space. And because it makes sense, no one wants to waste food. Everyone understands that that's not a good thing, just from, sort of like a basic moral point of view. It's not something you ever get an argument about. And then also large companies are increasingly having to prove their Scope 3 emissions. And so upcycled food is a venue for that. Growing market, all the stats. You can get these by going onto the Upcycled Food Association website. But so all of our products are upcycled certified. We also are a certified women-owned business, and we do go the extra step and have a full life cycle analysis done on all of our products by Planet Forward, and we pay for the carbon credit. So by the time they get to the buyer, they are carbon neutral. And we've just found that this, every little bit, especially when you're breaking into a massive industry that is owned by big food, every differentiator is important, but also it's the core of our business. I mean, Matriarch it's not like one of our products that's upcycled certified and carbon neutral. It's all of our products. It's our reason for being. And if we can't answer all three questions, is it good for the environment? Is it good for farmers? Are we creating greater access to healthy food for more people? We just don't do it. So currently we're now contracted with Foodbuy and Vizient. Foodbuy is the group purchasing organization for Compass Group, which is largest food service company in North America. I think actually also the world. Vizient does over 50% of healthcare. We have distribution with Cisco and US Foods, but we also still distribute with local distributors. We've been able to stay clear of KeHE and UNFI by working with local distributors, and we really like to do that wherever we can. But with the big food service companies, you really have to have distribution with Cisco or US Foods. And we've just launched this first product for emergency food on the Feeding America marketplace. So I'll just quickly run through some of our products. There's an upcycled vegetable concentrate. We track all of our emissions, so whenever anyone buys the product, they can see what we're doing, and it's all certified. We also are very proud of how clean label our products are, and increasingly there's market for that. And this slide is a late slide in our deck, which I'm not sure why we didn't put it in earlier, but always good to remember that everyone's looking for a clean label, and when you just put the facts in front of them, the choice starts to become obvious. Not easy, to disrupt the price point of big food or the market share that they have, but you can get a foot in the door, and once you get that foot in the door, it definitely starts to grow. So these are our pasta sauces, and this is the product we just launched for emergency food, and it's a full meal in a shelf-stable carton. We were very lucky to be part of the Kroger Zero Waste, Zero Hunger Accelerator program. We really benefited from being part of these kind of, incubator programs and USDA programs that allowed us to experiment and also to get non-dilutive funding. 50% of Matriarch's funding has been non-dilutive, which also means that we've been able to maintain our certified women-owned business status, which I hope everyone understands. Like, the obvious is political. We need more women-owned businesses in the world, but also it allows us to get into, diverse supplier programs and sort of get a little, toenail in the door of big food industry, which is very, very hard to disrupt. So what's next? We're working on another project in the California Bay Area, working with small farmers, trying to see if we can aggregate their surplus and make some products for local institutions. That's a project that's been supported by Google and LinkedIn that are also looking to create more regional resiliency, which is something that I think COVID, if there was any upside to COVID, which there is very little, it just made people much more aware of the need for regional resiliency in our food system. And so big institutions are looking to source more locally, and added value is really hard because there's very little processing in this country. So a place like Fork, I'll always sing the praises of Fork. That was, created a home for us when we needed a home, and also in an environment where, farmers come first, and that's such a huge part of, of Maine's economy, and it was amazing for us to be able to work in that environment, supportive, supporting what we were doing. So this is the product we're working on with these farmers, and we're just launching a pilot with the Chef Ann Foundation, which does a lot of work in the public schools in California. And there's a big drive in the public school system in California to do more local sourcing. And there's very little added value available through local sourcing. So that's pretty much it. Who's it for? The people, the planet, my grandmothers who inspired me, my grandchildren who are, now a lot bigger than this, my old dog who used to come to the farm with me, rest in peace, and you. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Anna, for sharing that information. I just want to remind everybody that as we're going through these presentations, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. That was great. Thank you. We're going to turn it over now to Christina.
So hi, everyone. I'm Christina, and I'm part of the Where Food Comes From team. And Where Food Comes From is an independent third-party verification and certification company. We work across a wide range of standards and programs, but all of them are focused on food and food production systems. And please reach out if you have questions. I'm going to try to walk through this quickly, just from an overview of what is Upcycled certified and what is our role in it. So Where Food Comes From is an independent third-party verification and certification company. We've been involved with the Upcycled certification program for several years, and blessed that they came to us when they were looking to launch the standard in 2021 and asked us to interview to be one of their certification bodies. And so I've worked with the Upcycled Food Association to launch that standard, and work with awesome folks like Anna and her team as they look to take to market or take to the Upcycled standard. So on this, what is Upcycled certified and why should you think about pursuing or enrolling in certification? Who's eligible? Everyone's eligible that's involved in food. This is a public standard. It's on our website now. So if you have any questions about it, please reach out to us. We're happy to answer any questions about how products may lean up against that standard. But what the Upcycled certified standard does is focus on food loss, and those ingredients, which Anna's pictures are awesome. Those ingredients that may be a byproduct or of a current human food production process, but for some reason have not been utilized and have either are going to waste or in the past would go to a waste stream, but that you're able then to focus on a point and divert those ingredients or inputs away from a waste stream and then use them in another human food or pet food product. So that's how it helps me think about it, is we're looking at the point of diversion. And Anna's pictures are great in terms of, or pictures of the vegetables cut up, on looking at if that product would have gone into a food loss destination, and then you're able then to take it and create another food grade product or input. So you can go to the next slide. Upcycled is Anna walked through already, and so there's obviously it is a claim that is in demand, and reducing waste is a top priority for many shoppers today, and they're looking for ways that they can help take their beliefs. And as we all know, consumers vote with their dollar, and all of us do every day. We vote with our dollars in what products or services that we choose. And that's the reason for the Upcycled certification program, along with many other certifications, is a way to establish a common definition. And Anna was involved in the very beginning they established the definition for Upcycled. But as we look across other certifications where you have a common definition, and then it allows folks to use that definition and then have a certification mark on package or on your manufacturing ingredients, so that you can help build trust through the system. And that's all that we do as a verification body. Everything that we do is to help engender trust throughout the system, and help folks feel good about the ingredients they're buying, or then as shoppers, as we are looking for what products or what services that we want to purchase for our family, so that we have a level of trust on that. And then at the same time, hopefully then helping build protection for both your brand or your consumers' brands or your customers' brands, so that there's a equality and transparency throughout the system. And then hopefully there's more and more consumers that are willing to pay more for a certified product, because they know what that means and that they can feel good about the products they're producing or purchasing. Okay, next slide. So currently, just a little level set, and this is all on our websites, but there are currently 521 inputs or products that are verified through the Upcycled certification program. As folks mentioned, we purchased the Upcycled certification program from the UFA right after Christmas, but it didn't change anything that we do in terms of the third-party review. We still follow the same processes. We begin with a business services agreement between where food comes from and the brands seeking certification or the co-packers, along with a licensing agreement. And then we do reviews of the ingredients according to the requirements of the written standard. And then there's a second review of the facilities in terms of their segregation and traceability processes. We look at those labels, making sure that everything is authentic, there's no false claims being made. And then we grant certification for those that achieve it. And then it goes on an annual review cycle. So a 12-month cycle is what those certificates are based on. I'm just watching for time so we can make sure to leave plenty of time. Next slide. Now, this is a very high level. So if anyone has questions, this material is all on our website, but please reach out if you have questions. And we can go through it. This is actually a diagram that's from the Upcycled standard, which is online, but it shows an example of where you would come in at a point of diversion. If you're growing grapes for wine, there's going to be remnants of that are left over from the wine production process. And this example is the grape pumice. And then this also would be the grape seeds. If you come in there at that point of diversion and you take that and you use that grape seed flour to make another input, and then you use that grape seed flour to make a cookie, then that cookie is eligible for upcycled certification, but also the grapeseed flour is eligible as a manufacturing ingredient or a UI in the standard. And then below is just some examples of the different records that we would look at as part of that authentication of the upcycled input. Okay, you can go to the next. So this is just a quick on where food comes from, and which I've already introduced. So I'll stop there because I want to allow lots of time for questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Christina. Again, encouraging folks to put questions in the chat. This is great information. Appreciate both of you sharing these stories and information on your businesses. As we're getting organized around questions, I'm going to throw one at you guys. So if I have a business and I'm thinking about developing an upcycled product, we've talked a little bit about certification and both of your stories, but are there generally things that a business should think about? Are there things they need to be paying attention to? Or is there anything they need to be careful about?
Well, from our side, then in terms of looking to identify ingredients, and Anna can definitely speak more to this, is as you're looking at possible inputs that may be historically or currently going into a loss or waste stream. So either the trash or compost or even livestock feed. Those are all built into the definition that was created for upcycled. So if you're, and I came up through the meat industry, and we used to go to suppliers' facilities and look for products that maybe weren't being utilized. They're either, trimmed off or whatever. Is there a way that we can build value into things? But if you're looking for those, what would be a potential product, and then look at that point of diversion, and then what records you could help substantiate and build a case to use that as an upcycled input or in turn an upcycled products.
Yeah, I think the thing I would only add is, there's when people are making food products, sort of historically, it's like, oh, I have this idea for the food product and I'm going to go find the ingredients from wherever they might exist. I think the difference in upcycled and the way that I describe our process is we look for the byproducts that exist or the surplus that exists, and we build from that so that we're shortening supply chains and we're addressing the issue with everything we do. And from an environmental point of view, I think when you're developing food, it's just so important. Obviously, I think it's the most important thing because that's what the company is built on. But to really think about, like, where your food is actually coming from, where your ingredients are actually coming from. And then, and then there is a lot of compliance. I mean, you have to, depending on what the product or the byproduct you're using is, you have to find great partners who are willing to go through the process with you of certifying not only that it's food safe, but what its traceability is. And I mean, I've spoken on, a bunch of podcasts about this, and I'm always happy to answer questions. But when we first started and we were working with large manufacturing facilities or smaller firms, traceability really was a challenge that we had to address. And so I think, obviously you have to design a great product. You want to make something that people are going to eat, whatever that is, and first and foremost, and you don't necessarily have to get into the weeds at that point. You want to do your MVP and test out the product, but then it really is, it's a different kind of supply chain, and you have to really be quite intentional and collaborative. We've found incredible partners, and I think there's a core value in upcycling, which is that literally no one I've ever met wants to waste food. And so just there you have the beginning of a conversation, and potentially inspiring conversation, which is, how can we reduce food waste together? And then really also it's a business proposition. So big manufacturers or smaller farmers, are putting all their inputs into growing food, transporting food, et cetera. And so when food gets thrown out, they're also putting money in the garbage. And so upcycling is a solution, and it's a financial solution. And that's another way into it.
That's great. Thank you for adding that information. I'm going to introduce again Christine, my colleague in Selling More Maine Food. She's going to be helping to moderate. Christine, do you see any questions in the chat you'd like to throw at these guys?
Thanks, Tanya. Yeah, there is a question that's come in, and I believe it's in regard to the certification. Is there a content percentage for the end product? So for example, the Maine local food incentives for public schools requires a 51% local ingredients as an example. So if you could talk to some of those requirements, that'd be great.
Yes, great question, because I noticed yesterday that was not in my slide deck. So what the upcycled certification standard has written is that for finished consumer ready products, that in order to use the upcycle logo on front of pack, that you need to have at least 10.0% of back to the validated upcycled input. But there's also kind of a secondary level that if you don't quite meet the 10%, then you can achieve a compliancy through total tonnage diverted. So there's a couple options on there. And then the other carve out is that with that ceiling of the 10%, it doesn't have to be single ingredient. It can be an aggregate of multiple ingredients.
Perfect. Thanks for clarifying that.
I think we've got a second question in the chat for Anna. Small farms have challenges of wanting higher prices for their seconds and upcycled. Are you able to pay for seconds on a sliding scale?
Yes. Short answer is yes. And and it's very complicated because in addition to, making upcycled products, Matriarch is very focused on food access. And so price point of our finished goods, needs to compete with big food, which, not only has, the scale to their advantage and distribution and all of those things, but also, as we've learned from recent reports, sometimes using prison labor for free. So we're fighting an uphill battle on price. But that said, we really have been able to figure out blended margins. We work with a bean grower in New York State who has literally tons of kickouts that he's been sending to animal feed. And so, any price that he can get for those beans is worth it to him. And you know, we spend a lot of time in our sourcing looking for ways to integrate as much surplus and byproduct as possible while meeting the price points that we need to achieve, while creating enough of a margin for the business that we can continue to grow. Big puzzle.
Yeah, lots of different pieces to this. I think we're having a pause on questions in the chat. I've got another one for you though while we're talking on this topic. I'm thinking about the different types of businesses that might pursue upcycled certification. What types of businesses in terms of like the size and scale are you seeing? Is it more appropriate for a certain type of business or scale of business to try to get the certification?
So there's actually a huge range of companies involved, from very small entrepreneurial brands that are not even on the, you know, are still working on product development that are not yet have launched product, all the way to multinational CPG firms. So you have a huge range of folks that are engaged with more and more researching and working on products today. So really, it's anyone who's in the food business, I guess, is engaged at this point. And then what we're also, just because I just was looking at some slides for a gentleman that is presenting at an ice cream conference here in the week after next, and he's a product development specialist. So that's where when you get the product development guys, kind of like back to what Anna said, where we always used to say, here's my end product and I want to figure out how to get ingredients. But if you shift and look at it, if I'm an ingredient supplier who's looking for different options and trying to fulfill different markets for my customers, when they're saying, hey, what can we look for and what can we help put together as powders, as blends, as fruit preps, that then folks who want to achieve certification then are coming back and pushing on the ingredient suppliers. That's where you can see some significant momentum, right? For brands big and small, as you know, folks are researching and wanting to have a label on pack that helps communicate, right? It's very challenging. Anna's product is a great example, right? It's a small footprint that you have at retail to be able to communicate all the things that you're doing behind the scenes, from a responsible sourcing and sustainability. There's not a lot of real estate, as you all know, in terms of to communicate that, but that it gives that buyer a portal to look at, and then you can, you know, talk about all the other things there. So
Christina, following up on that, there's a question, and Bill, I do see your hand, so I'll jump to you next. Is there a quick lookup of upcycled ingredients, any sort of resource that folks could go to when they're searching out folks that are looking to possibly supply? And can it be filtered in any capacity if there is such a resource?
sure. So that the product listing was on the Upcycled Food Association page, and that has all migrated over to the Where Food Comes From pages, and it's under our Upcycled. So the product list should be there. If someone has questions or whatever, and they can't find the right filter, then please reach out, and we're happy to engage or you know, and connect folks right to appropriate folks within some of those supply networks.
Great, thanks. We'll work to share that specific link out as a follow-up as well.
Sure, I can send it to Christine. So
thank you. And Bill?
Yeah, Anna, I think this one's for you. What's your experience relative to markets for finished product and retail versus institutional, in terms of both pricing and aggregation? What I know you bounced back and forth. Where have you found your most success? Because at the bottom line is you're still a business and you have to find a way to get products from point A to point B.
Yes, you do. And I mean, we are still in 3 channels. So, I mean, we're operating as if we're a very big food company because we aspire to be that, but also because each channel does something different. So food service is really the engine of the business financially. It's where we're selling in pallets, not in cartons. Retail is really where we are able to tell the story more to the consumer, and that drives actually some food service business. And then emergency food is a bit of a blend of those two. And because we're selling directly to food banks, our margins are better. Retail, is, I'm sure everyone knows, is just a massive money sink, and you really have to start out with a I would say like 60%, you know, margin that gets sort of like gets eaten away by every possible bill back, et cetera. But we started in food service because we really felt like that was where we could make the biggest impact. I still believe that. We also launched our first product into food service the first week of March of 2020. And then food service shut down globally for 2.5 years. So we really, we've hit like every, you know, I mean, I guess it's made us very resilient. We're still standing. But we, you know, we've hit sort of every challenge you could imagine. And I mean, they've just made us stronger, I have to say. You know, we've developed a lot of great relationships in food service. That served us very well during COVID because food service companies that had to pivot and do, let's say, food boxes for frontline workers called us up and said, can you make something for the food box? We just did it. But yeah, I mean, you know, for us, it's really the three channels are equally important in very different ways, and they have different challenges. Retail, we've kept to the Northeast and online. You know, we're not expanding beyond the Northeast until we have deep penetration. And, you know, getting off the shelf in retail is challenging when you're in a sea of other products. So, you know, we're always working with, you know, we've been working with Fresh Direct and with Whole Foods, talking about, you know, what does it look like to have a climate friendly food aisle, for example. So when you're doing this, I mean, you have to be an activist in addition to a food producer because it's a new space. But that's also what makes it really exciting and what makes all the collaborations very vibrant. And we certainly find that, you know, everyone wants a better planet. Everyone wants healthier food for their families. So each channel has its own highs and lows, I guess.
I have a follow-up as well. In terms of the other side of the business, the aggregation side of product to come in, I know we're working on several projects here in Maine at Fork, and we're dealing with a lot of very small farms and trying to find ways of getting not tons, but pounds product, and then aggregating that in some rational way so you can actually do something with it, I think is a challenge within this sort of space of upcycling. What have you found, and what challenges have you found, and what workarounds have you been able to develop to deal with the aggregation issue?
Yeah, I mean, it is really, really challenging working with smaller firms for all the reasons you know. There's just logistics, storage, washing, you know, centralized washing. And the one thing I would say is, you know, I'm not sure I have anything more insight on the challenge. The one thing I would say that's quite positive, I think, is that all of this work is pushing people to think about better logistics and more regional logistics structures. So, you know, whether that's shared trucking or that's, you know, economic development of aggregation spaces, washing, chopping, et cetera. I think we're seeing, you know, also with the Build Back Better bill, that there's more funding from an environmental perspective. That, you know, I mean, we can talk about it in lots of different ways, but the end result is that infrastructure is starting to be built to address regional resiliency that will support that. We're nowhere near where it is. And I think what happens often is that people come into the food space and they see these challenges, and some of those people break away and start addressing the other things like aggregation and logistics. So it's, it's a little bit of Wild West, but also pioneering happening. I think there's just so much opportunity to build, the middle landscape, what I call the kind of middle landscape of infrastructure around the space. If that answers your question, sort of.
It does, thank you.
I think we're almost at time. So I want to thank you both for sharing these inspiring stories and this great information. Just very pleased to be able to have you with us in this first session. I invite anybody that has additional questions to go ahead and post them. We'll try to follow up, but we'll also be posting the video online, and I believe we're going to be getting some of the slides as well to share out. So thanks to everyone for joining us today. Our second session for this series is scheduled on Thursday, April 4th from 8:30 to 9:45. We're pleased to have Bill Soretta from Fork Food Lab as a moderator for session 2. And we'll be featuring innovators from several main businesses that are incorporating upcycling in their products and processes. And Sue just put a slide up there of some of those presenters. We hope to also be joined by some of their partners as well. So we may have a few more folks on that call as well. A list of the session 2 presenters and registration links is available on the webpage hosted at mainfoodstrategy.org/selling or SMMF. You can also find information or request information at our email account, which is sellingmoremainfoods@gmail.com. Please watch for an evaluation form for today's session, and we hope to see you next week. Thanks everyone for joining us this morning. Have a great day.
Thank you all. Bye.